Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
And I always love doing these when it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and you've never had the thrill. And in this case, it's the I would say cult classic probably applies for the 1984 movie Angel. Now, I know Lewis, you hadn't seen this movie until recently. This is one of my video staples. Okay, I remember going to the video store, seeing the cover, and it has across one side is Angel as a student, the other side is Angel as a hooker. It says high school honor student by day, hooker by night. I'm like, this is my movie. This is something I've got to see. It appealed to me and it appealed to my teen sensibilities. And I'm like, God damn it, I have got to rent this. Um, so this, I wouldn't call it a great movie, but it's one of those movies I absolutely love. A few years back, there was a screening at the New Beverly. That's why I'm representing it.
Nice.
Theater I talk about often. Quentin Tarantino owns it, and they did a triple bill screening. Oh God, it was supposed to be about Hollywood, and they did a grindhouse night, and they showed Angel. They showed Vice Squad, which we're going to talk about in the future, and
Okay.
I think the other one was Savage Streets. But I always wanted to see Angel with an audience. But yeah, I've been kind of talking a lot. Why don't you tell me? You just saw this movie probably today, knowing you. What's your impressions of Angel?
Actually saw it last night.
All right,
And I'm gonna say, Johnny, I wasn't super thrilled with the movie.
you're killing me.
Uh Looking at it from a teenage standpoint, a teenage boy's standpoint, yeah, I would have been all over this. I mean, 100%. Um, Looking at it now as an adult, not so much. And I was actually shocked to see that there was at least one sequel. And as I was reading, it sounded like that they actually made more.
They did make more. So, for a movie that didn't do great at the box office, but it had life on home video, it actually produced three sequels.
Wow.
So in 1985, they did Avenging Angel, which starred Betsy Russell. And if I could read my own writing, I think it was 1988. They did Angel 3. What was it? The final something or other. The final chapter. Sorry, Mitzi Capture was Angel. And apparently that wasn't the final one because they did Angel 4 Undercover, starring Darlene Vogel. That came out in 1994. So yeah, it did produce three sequels, and each sequel had, even though they called it the girl Molly Stewart, quote Angel, they used a different girl for each one.
Yes, yes, and even for some of the primary actors, at least in the second one, I think it was Lieutenant Andrews,
Yeah.
completely different actor, and I didn't delve into the other ones, but I thought that was bizarre, and I tried seeing why. Maybe you in your notes know why, but I wasn't able to see why they actually had to get other actors.
Well, first let's talk. We'll talk about the movie, then we'll dive into it. In regards to that, so I kind of gave it away with the tagline, right? Honor student by day, Hollywood hooker at night. God, what a great flick. Um, so the movie is about Angel, obviously, who is a student by day. She's supposed to be 15 years old. I think at the time of filming, Donna Wilkes was actually 23. But she was playing a 15-year-old with the pigtails and all that stuff. Um, she is forced through a situation you find out later on, is forced to become a hooker. to survive. And she befriends other hookers, other characters that all hang out in Hollywood Boulevard. Um, and of course, because it's in the 80s, there is a serial killer that's taking out these hookers. And it's never really explained what the motivation is. They don't even give the guy a name. He's like the killer. That's how he's listed. And he's just killing these hookers. So there's a cop that's trying to get her off the streets. So the school is trying to intervene and try and get her off the streets, but you find out later on what's going on in her life and why she can't. Um, but again, getting back to the movie, the only one I couldn't find out why they replaced the gentleman who played Lieutenant Andrews in the first movie with a different guy in the second. And the reason they replaced Donna Wilkes is I actually watched an interview with her from a while back. And I guess she was, you know, first off, I know her from Jaws too. I had a huge crush on her in Jaws too. And that was probably one of the reasons too why I wanted to see Angel, because I had such a crush on this girl who died tragically in Jaws too. Um, but I guess what they were saying is when they decided they wanted to do the sequel, and it was the same writer director that was doing the sequel, they came to her and they said, we want you back. We're going to double your salary. Well, that sounds great until you discover that they're also doubling the amount of days that they're shooting. So I guess
Oh.
the original was only shot in like 20 days. So they're going to double the amount of days shooting. So essentially, she was getting paid the same. So at that time, she's like, I don't want to get pigeonholed into this role. They're not really offering me more money. I'm being paid the exact same, or I'm being paid more, but for the, twice the work as well. And she decided not to do it. I've watched one of the sequels, which was The Avenging Angel, because Betsy Russell's in that, and I love Betsy Russell, but she probably made the right choice. But she said in that interview that with hindsight being what it is, she wishes she had taken the role, and she wishes she had gone back to it. So let's dive a little bit into Angel. So you said you didn't enjoy the campiness of it.
No, I mean, I can't even really place my finger on what it was about the movie that I didn't like. It campy, I guess, is a good word, but I'm not even sure that that's it. It just was something that's like, all right, this is okay, and yeah, it's a weird premise and some weird ass shit in the movie. And I'll come back to that later, especially one scene. But yeah, so I don't really have a very good answer for that yet. Just it wasn't something that I dug. Maybe I wasn't in the right frame of mind for it. Who knows?
Probably not. I love the movie. Again, it's not a great movie, but it is a cult classic. Seeing an audience react to it was super cool. And again, this goes back to my video rental days. I'd love to know how many times I rented it back in the day. But I think too, it's kind of crazy to look back because they filmed it in Hollywood and they filmed it on Hollywood Boulevard. And these are streets that you and I have walked many times, never as hookers. I want to clear that up, people, never as hookers. Or Johns. Anyway, you know what I'm saying here. Jesus.
Oh my
Um,
God! Open mouth, insert foot.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow, that was even worse. Can we stop this? Rewind. Go back. But it's kind of crazy because like I look back on it and you see, it's supposed to be like, oh, it's this dirty, Hollywood Boulevard. It looks so much better than it looks now. It's like it looked a lot safer in the 80s. I don't care how many hookers you had out there. It seems or serial killers seemed a lot safer back then than it does now. But it's a trip for me to walk, these streets and see this movie and like, oh, I recognize that and I recognize that. And um, for some of the places are gone, but you recognize a lot of the scenery.
Right.
And what's crazy is when they actually had their premiere, they had it at the old Pacific Theater. And you and I have walked by that quite a few times. It's still there. It's, no longer in operation, but the sign's still up there. And they had their premiere there. So how many people were watching the premiere and realizing if they stepped right outside that that's where a lot of the movie was being filmed?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, did you have a favorite character in this movie? You said there's a lot of weird stuff that happens. I'm kind of curious to know what you think was the weird thing.
Well, there were two things that jogged my memory, right? And there was one thing I just thought was way bizarre. But I'm gonna go with favorite character. Uh it's funny because he was super campy. He was probably one of the more campy characters in the movie. Was the guy that played Kit Carson, who to me was like, this is a like almost a Muppet version of Sam Elliott. That's who they were going for when they made this character. But I thought he fit. I thought he was very sort of quirky and again, campy is a perfect word for it. I dug Kit.
It's funny because if you go look him up and I forgot the actor's name. If you look it up on IMDb, that dude, like you look at his photo and on IMDb, that dude is the epitome of classic Hollywood. The good looks, the black and white photo, like you can tell that guy was a stud back in the day.
Rory
Sadly,
Calhoun.
I'm sure
I'm
he's
looking at
passed.
it right now.
What's his name?
Rory Calhoun.
Rory Calhoun, thank you. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess my favorite character is Angel, but I had this weird thing about, not a weird thing for him, but a sort of reverence, even though he's a minor character. Yo Yo really connected with me. Why are you laughing?
Because I looked at Yo-Yo and there was a certain I didn't immediately associate it with him, but there was a certain look that he had, and he was looking down and looking up, with his eyes. I'm all, dude, that's a young Mark Spielman. Right there, that's a young Mark Spielman. Go back and check it out.
Okay, I don't know the scene, but all
It-
right.
It's it it's like when he was talking to the hooker that he seemed to be enamored with, and she was walking away from him. They just talked about business was slow or whatever, and he was sitting down and he was looking up at her like this. I'm all like, God, man, that looks a lot like a young Mark Spielman.
All right. Well, I'm probably you and I are the only ones that know who Mark Spielman is on this, so that's great reference here, Lou. Um,
Well, I'll tell Mark so he can listen.
all right. But yeah, I felt really bad for him. He was actually in the sequel too. I don't know how big of a part he had in it, but he was in the sequel as well. But it just he really had a thing for Crystal, and who was a hooker that tried. It was the first one you kind of see that gets killed, or one of the first. Um, and just how heartbroken he is, and you see him holding the top that he had given her, and way to contaminate a crime scene. But
I
it's,
thought the same
he's,
thing.
he's a little, he didn't know he's not a cop. What's he gonna, he's just, he's Yo-Yo. Come on, a little Charlie Chaplin thing. I liked it. I felt bad for him. Interesting thing about Crystal, she was only in like four movies. Around, she did four movies. She was actually a singer, and some of her songs were on soundtracks later on. But do you know how you know her?
I don't. I didn't recognize anybody from this
Her
movie.
real name is Donna McDaniel. Do you remember Motley Crue's Nasty Habits? They're two female backing singers that they
Oh
used on
yeah.
the Dr. Feelgood and Girls, Girls, Girls tour. She was one of the Nasty Habits. That's how
Wow.
you know her. So Donna McDaniel went from being killed in Angel to being on stage with Motley Crue.
Oh well, it's a good career change.
Yeah. It's funny though, like some of these locations, right? Like the school she went to is Harvard Westlake. I've been there. Like the scene where she's running across the field, I've played on that field a few times. So that was kind of a trip. And then what when they see oh god, Lana. Remember when they go and they're at that hotel where Lana's killed and like, what are you gonna do about it, cop, and all this and all that. That's actually in that hotel's on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City. It's called the El Royale. And it I mean, I haven't been there in a couple years, but I'd say it's probably less. It maybe 2 years ago I was there, and for work, it looks pretty much the exact same. Like
That's
nothing really
cool.
has changed. So you can go there and, like I even saw the room. I think I took a photo of the room where Lana was supposedly killed.
That's awesome.
So yeah, next time you're out here, I'll have to take you there because I know you're such a huge fan of Angel, as you should be. You should be. So you mentioned some weird stuff. Was there any
Okay.
other weird things that you wanted to mention?
So one you touched on already that it's something that just jarred my memory. The top. I completely forgotten about those tops, and I think that I had one. And for people that don't haven't seen the movie, it's a top, but it's got like a little tip on it that rotates, and it's got like some sort of a gyro mechanism inside the top. So it's almost like the Evil Knievel wheel, where it's got that whole centrifugal force thing going for it, except it's inside the top. And you sort of spin it, and then you set it on something, and it spins on its own. I'd forgotten about those things completely, and it was really cool to see that. The second thing that I forgot about was that smoking was allowed in theaters. In the short clip they had of the killer in the theater, you see people in the background and streams of smoke coming up. Those are two things that jarred my memory. And I'll let you talk for a little bit because I've rambled for a little bit.
No, you haven't. I actually have. I gotta say, I don't know why, but so the killer who doesn't have a name, and I'm sorry, I keep shaking. My dog is begging for attention.
She wants in.
She could have been sleeping all day, and the minute we start recording, it's like I need this attention here. It's like thanks, girl. Um, I think the guy who is John Deal. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Did you recognize him from anything else?
I didn't. I didn't.
He was in the movie Stripes with Bill Murray. He was Cruiser.
Really?
Yes.
You
Go
know,
back. He's like the simpleton. But he played a great killer in this movie. And
he
I
did.
gotta say, credit to him, the scene that really just freaked me out is the egg scene.
That's the weird one I was gonna talk about.
Okay.
So yeah, let's talk about that.
Go, please. Please take it.
So, for again, people that haven't seen the movie, there's a scene where the guy, I think he was working out or something, and he finishes and he grabs this egg and he grabs a switchblade and he pierces the top of the egg with the switchblade, and then you find that the egg is raw, and he starts sucking on it through the little hole. And he's taking way too freaking long sucking on this thing. I'm like, oh my God, dude, this is almost like a love affair. And then from the very end, he crushes the whole egg into his face. It's like, all right, that was worth it all. Absolutely.
It was it's and he's looking at a photo because, like I said, they don't really ever explain his motivation or whatever and what that photo represented. Um, but so something about that photo, I assume it was him and his mother, and that was kind of alluding to why he's killing hookers. I don't know, but that scene just freaked me out, and it freaks me out even more because this is the '80s, right? He did that. There was no way around it. He actually had to do that, and I just thought, man, that was incredibly creepy. And also when he shaved his head,
Yeah.
I thought he did a really great job, and it's so crazy because then you go back and watch him in Stripes, and he's this total simpleton cruiser, and it's like, wow, the guy was good.
He was very good. And I almost compared him to an Arnold Schwarzenegger in the original Terminator because throughout the entire movie, he doesn't say squat. It's only after he's been shot and he's sitting there up against the brick wall of the building his back's up against.
In
He's
the
just sitting there going,
alley.
what's that? In the alley? Yes. And he's just like, it hurts. And he says like two or three times, it hurts. And then he dies.
Awesome. So the crazy thing about that is you allude to the ending. Sorry, we should have said spoiler alert. Thanks, Lou. Now, oh, by the way, this thing's on Tubi. If you want to see it, it's free. I highly recommend Tubi. If you want to ever go into the dark hole of 80s movies, you can do it. But the funny thing about that is part of the interview that I was watching with Donna Wilkes is they had no permits to film. They didn't get permits to film this stuff. So she says, as she, and that's all her. She didn't have a stunt double or anything. And as she's running down the street with the gun in her hand, I mean, obviously, some people see the cameras and think but other people probably didn't see cameras and are like, what the hell? And she was like, I hope nobody was like a good Samaritan that had a gun and was like, oh, we got to take this girl out before she kills that person and shoots her. But yeah, I mean, it was the 80s, it was low budget. And what a great time. Yeah, I can't imagine making a movie about a 15-year-old hooker nowadays. It's just, you know, it would be too sensitive.
It would definitely be very controversial. And it's funny because I tripped on I can't remember the name of the actor, but it's one of the Johns that she was about to sleep with. And he was the one that went into the bathroom and found out that the girl had been murdered. And he's all like, you better, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's like, you better be under 14 or I'm going to throw you back.
Yeah,
Like, oh, that's so wrong.
it was, for the movie, it was appropriate. Um, we got to talk about two of the characters, Solly and May. I forgot the name of the actress that played Solly, who's obviously a lesbian, and then May, who was played by Dick Shawn, who is portraying, I guess, a crossdresser. I don't know. They never really explain or define what either of them are. The only reason I think she's a lesbian is because he mentioned something about her when she's like our little angels growing up, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't like how you're looking at her,"
Right.
and he's always dressed as a woman, so um, I'll just go with that. And if I'm wrong, they don't really define it. But did you recognize anything about Dick Shawn?
Um, I tried really hard throughout this entire movie to go, I know that person from somewhere, and Dick Shawn was one of them, and the teacher figure, Patricia Allen, I guess the actress is Elaine Giftus, was the other one that I recognized the faces, but I could not place them.
Did you look up the? I didn't recognize the teacher from anything, so
Yeah, I looked her up and she didn't have any like roles and major roles in anything, but she was in a lot of sitcoms. Like she was in the $6 Million Man, she was in Three's Company, uh just sort of one-time episode roles. And maybe that's where I recognized her from.
Dick Shawn was the voice of Snow Miser in The Year Without
Oh
a
my
Santa Claus.
God, no.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
that's
awesome.
probably another reason why, because I love A Year Without a Santa Claus. I know it's not 80s, but I'll never forget Brian, our old drummer. I went out with him and his wife one time. We were hanging out at their place, and I don't even know how we got in the conversation, but we were talking about Christmas and Christmas movies and things like that. And it was like June or something like that. And I said, God, there was this movie, I forget, but it had Heat Miser and Snow Miser. I'm Mr. Heat Miser. And he goes, I have it. He goes, it's A Year Without a Santa Claus. And we are watching he had the VHS tape of it. And we're watching
Nice.
it in June and we're having a blast watching it. And that's one of my all time favorites. So shout out to Dick Shawn, who went from playing Heat or Snow Miser to portraying May, a crossdresser. And he also had the best line in the entire movie. Yours was pretty good. If I find out you're not 14, I'm gonna throw you back. But Dick Shawn had the best line in the movie. You remember what it was?
No.
So when his character May gets stabbed trying to protect Angel from the serial killer, he's dying, and Solly, who I guess is the apartment manager, comes running in, discovers him as he's dying, and he says, kind of verbatim, he goes, "Just my luck. I'm dying, and the last thing I want to be seeing is your ugly face." How awesome is that line? Come on. Come on, Lou. You got to give that one up. You got to
Yeah,
give that.
all right, I 100% agree. 100% agree. And that whole death scene again was campy. That line was absolutely classic.
Yes. That ruled. That absolutely ruled. And you know, one of the things that they say, they kind of a lot of people feel like this movie was kind of ahead of its time, is because you had two of the main characters. One was a cross-dresser, one was a lesbian. Those painted eyebrows, just whoo, um, done with a sharpie. It looked like, but they really, nothing about it was condescending. Yeah, it's campy, but the relationships with everybody, how they referred to one another, like none of it was very homophobic, which in the 80s you saw a lot of that. And a lot of people almost applauded Angel for their portrayal of these characters because it did seem so progressive. Like, nobody, like, Kit Carson, for example, never dealt with May in a condescending way. And he's this old macho Western guy. And he was very, very agreeable to being around her character or his character, however we want to classify May.
Yep.
And so, credit to them that it never really went in a negative stereotype, I thought.
That struck me when there was one scene, and I can't remember where it was in the movie, but yeah, Carson's character goes, "Well, shall we, ladies?" And he grabs one by the arm, Stacy slash Angel by one arm, and then
Molly,
was it Molly?
yeah.
Okay, and then Molly by the other. And yeah, so I thought that was really interesting, and yes, definitely ahead of its time. And it's funny that you mentioned that because the movie won an award at the San Francisco International Lesbian and Gay Film Festival. So that was
In that year, or do you know when?
1984.
Okay, so when it came out.
Yeah. So it's sort of interesting that you call that out because again, that seems to have reverberated with the gay and lesbian community.
Well, look at that. See, look at all these positives about Angel, and yet we can't, how many movies, I'm trying to think how many movies that you would say it would have had this amount of sequels. I'm trying to think that didn't really do well at the box office. It's kind of crazy to think about. I guess they've
Yeah,
got some.
yeah, there might have been. I mean, we definitely have to do some research. Again, I was shocked at the end of the movie that I was on Tubi, and it suggested me to watch, Avenge Angel. I'm like, what? They made a sequel to this? That's when I started reading. It's like they didn't make just one; they made more than one.
Yeah. Did you watch any of Avenging Angel?
I started to, and after I saw that it was completely different actors, it's like I lost interest.
Okay. All right. Do you have a favorite? I've already discussed my favorite scene. That scene's hard to beat, but do you have a favorite scene from this movie?
A favorite scene? No, I can't say that I got a favorite scene. I guess the most memorable one is the one with the egg. That just it was creepy, it was psycho, and it was just weird, it's definitely the thing that sticks out in the movie for me.
All right. That definitely played well. And again, I wish you had felt more sympathy for poor Yo-Yo.
No, nothing against Yo-Yo. He was cool, right? I mean, for people that again haven't seen the movie, he was a street performer that, as you would guess from his name, he sort of worked with a yo-yo to do what he did to entertain people.
And to
And
talk.
no, he was nice. He was quirky, and he was like that sweet guy that that had his eye on one of the hookers and stuff, and got his heart broken. And yeah, that was sad. Another scene I guess that sticks in my head that it wasn't very long. It was just very God, what is in the word I'm looking for? Maybe you can help me after I describe the scene. At the beginning of the movie, you've got this sort of geeky high school guy that's asking Stacy slash Angel out.
Molly.
Is it Molly?
Yes, I've corrected you twice now.
I thought Molly was the transvestite guy. Okay,
That's
well,
May.
okay, you're right. That's me. And so, and he asks her out, and she smiles and says, my parents say that I'm not old enough to date, so I can't go out. And then later on in the movie, he comes back and asks her again, and she says the same thing. He's all like, "No, no, I've got $21." This is after that people at her school found out that she was a hooker. He's like, "No, no, I've got $21. It's all I've got. I mean, is that enough?" That was very impactful to me. That was hugely impactful to me. And again, it wasn't a very long scene, but it sort of showed a turn of events as how people viewed her at the high school, and very poignant to me.
Were you shocked by the twist about her mother?
Um, a little bit, but not too much. Because
Yeah,
I saw that she always avoided having people go in there, and I thought that was something that did go through the back of my head. It's like, I wonder if she's even there.
yeah. So for those that haven't seen the movie, spoiler alert, you find out the reason Angel is becoming a hooker at night, honor student by day. Her mother had actually left her. And the reason she is trying to stay where she's at is she has this belief that her father is going to come back. They never really explain why the father abandoned her, but she has this belief that the father is going to come back. And obviously, without the advent of the internet, if she's in the same place, that the father could find her. So it was really kind of heartbreaking to find that out. Again, I saw it when I was 15, not an honor student, not a hooker at night. But seeing that that's what happened to her, you couldn't help but feel even worse for her in her situation. So it tugged at my 15-year-old heartstrings. It still does, my 55-year-old
If
heartstrings.
year old,
Yeah. Hey, somebody I was training with the other day heard my age and he goes, "Really?" He goes, "Man, I thought you were in your 30s." I'm like, "Fuck yeah."
oh, that's a hell of a compliment, man.
Yeah, I don't know what he's smoking, but well, whatever. I'll take it. Unless he's trying to nail me, in which case, sorry, dude, I'm married. But yeah, I'll take it. All right, so we're not gonna have another episode where we're gonna do Angel 2 and Angel 3.
We
We're gonna end it
can.
with
I mean,
Angel, huh?
again, I wouldn't have watched Angel if you hadn't suggested it, and it was a sort of a neat foray back into the '80s and Hollywood and what it looked like. So that was cool. I could be coaxed into watching Avenge Angel.
I probably won't do an episode on it, but that's okay. The reason I mentioned we're gonna do in the future Vice Squad, and again Hollywood Streets. It stars Wings Hauser, and he plays a pimp. Tell me this isn't the greatest pimp name ever, Ramrod. Yes, a killer pimp named Ramrod. And the reason we're going to do an episode in the future is in a couple of weeks, I actually have a ticket to go see Vice Squad at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood
Oh,
on
nice.
Hollywood Boulevard where these movies were shot. And Wings Hauser is going to be present doing a Q&A. So
Beautiful.
Ramrod in person. Yes,
That's
and so we'll have to talk about that and talk about Ramrod and what a great horrible movie Vice Squad is. But that's going to be in the future. So something to look forward to, right?
sounds good, man. Absolutely.
All right. Before we end this bad boy, anything you want to add? I think we've
No,
covered
no.
everything.
Again, it was sort of a campy movie. I think that's a really good description of it. Um, uh, it was groundbreaking in certain ways, right? Definitely ahead of its time in certain ways, and yeah, it was okay. It's all right.
Don't listen to Lewis. It's awesome. Check it out. It's on Tubi. It's free. 15-year-old prostitute. Come on. It's so 80s. Anyway, all right. Well, Lou, I think you did a fantastic job trying to drum up a little bit of enthusiasm for a movie you seem to have a lot of enthusiasm for. Um, I guess the next one we should do is, oh God, um, Eliminators 2 or whatever. What is Anyway, we'll talk. But as
Yes, well,
always, thank you guys for watching this. Hope you enjoyed our talk about Angel. Highly recommend seeing it if you can see it with an audience. I don't know if New Bev has it coming out anytime soon, but it is an amazing, amazing film to see with an audience. Trust me. And Lou, as always, take us out, brother.
all right. Peace out, everybody.
Thank you guys.